Kaitlin, so glad to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Sonali.
And I'd love to start with a summary of your career transition.
What I went through this last year was really the biggest transition. I started as a news reporter, a TV reporter in Birmingham, Alabama, 11 years ago, back when we were carrying our own equipment, shooting our own video, multimedia journalist, as they say, jack of all trades. Moved to Houston, where I worked at the ABC affiliate there as a reporter, and then moved to Boston about 4 years ago, working for a station here. So that was a lot of transition and a lot of different cities adapting to different cultures and people, but the job was pretty much more or less the same up until last year, which is when I decided to make a big jump.
I'm fascinated by the term multimedia journalist. Is it different from a regular journalist?
So in TV news, the way the industry has changed over the years, when it first started, there was a reporter who did the on-camera work and did the writing and did the interviews, and then there was a photographer. But by the time I entered the industry in 2010, we were taught how to shoot our own video, how to edit, how to write for the web. So you're basically doing five jobs in one. It was a real big learning curve, which many TV journalists fall into that now. But some of the bigger stations and bigger cities aren't doing that as much just because of logistic challenges.
That's interesting. So let's talk about the transition that you made last year after you'd switched cities and then moved up to Boston.
Over the years in the industry, even in the 10, 11 years that I've been in it, I've seen a lot of changes. There have been stories that I've wanted to cover that my fellow colleagues have wanted to cover that just weren't happening based on the brand of particular stations or what they thought the viewers would be interested in. And so I just started seeing these opportunities really for better coverage that kind of meets more needs of the community. As I got into Boston, it was a similar situation where we're very tight deadlines. We're almost a 24-hour news station because of the way the industry has evolved over the years. And so I thought that there had to be a better way to share stories that matter without the sensationalism and the polarization that we're seeing across the country. And a lot of that is a result of wanting to keep people's attention and use it to sell ads. So that's kind of where it's like, how do I do this? I didn't really know how, but I knew that I wanted to try to be a part of the solution rather than being a part of the problem. That's why I just decided that the pandemic was the right time. I had an opportunity to pause and to really think critically about my goals and about why I got into the industry to begin with and whether or not I was accomplishing those in the ways that I wanted to. And so I just set out to start my own company in an effort to try to solve some of those problems.
I heard that you were left unfulfilled by the general media trend to capture the user's attention through sensationalism and then sell them ads. And that, in your opinion, didn't serve the purpose of journalism. I'm curious to know, is it something that your generation feels strongly about, or are you sort of unique in that respect?
I am definitely not alone in thinking this way. And it's the reason that many of my colleagues have also left either journalism as a whole and gone into other careers or are also starting their own companies or doing their own independent work. And fortunately, we're at a time right now when that's beginning to be possible. People are really trying to figure out ways to tell the stories that they feel are important to their communities and find a way to monetize that. And so that's what I'm trying to build with Outlet as a way to monetize that, make that possible for more independent creators.
And that gets us nicely to Outlet. Why did you decide to call it that?
That's a good question. Initially, I started as a podcast as I left my job, really as a research method to as a way to talk with other journalists, other industry experts, other business experts who I felt needed an outlet to share their thoughts unfiltered in a more in a more flexible way than the methods that are currently available through traditional media. So that's why I started uh, the podcast naming outlet. I continued with that because I believe that there are so many independent journalists and creators with subject area expertise, whether they're doctors or astronauts or whatever the profession is, that need an outlet to share their knowledge, to share other people's stories that isn't influenced by outside corporations or politicians or any other need to hold and keep your attention other than to share their content.
I'm curious to know, how does the monetization model work here?
Journalism has been struggling for a long time trying to figure out how do we make good journalism profitable. And I am not pretending to have the one solution to everything. I hope that this method that I'm working on will be an avenue for independent journalists and creators to monetize. And so the way that I have it set up right now is that it's a mix of subscriptions as well as a direct user to creator monetization method. You had mentioned Substack. Substack has proven through newsletters that people are willing to pay for content that they find valuable without the ads. So that while that's on the print side, what I want to do is blend subscriptions, yeah, with a direct user to creator monetization method, meaning that the likes are not necessarily free. So like when you like something, if you like a video that you find valuable on outlet, part of your subscription money goes directly to that creator. So the creator is taking home a large percentage of every dollar that is being spent through outlet.
Understood. So you have a subscription-based model. Majority of it goes to the creator. How you attract creators and consumers to your platform?
I'm still in the early stages of developing this. I finished my pitch deck a few weeks ago, and I'm preparing for a few pitch competitions through the Wharton Entrepreneurship Accelerator program that I'm doing now. But yes, you're right. Attracting creators, and it's a two-sided marketplace. You have creators on the one side, and you have users on the other. Um, Neither one is going to come to the platform without the presence of the other, and so that's why I'll be needing to raise money soon to subsidize one side of that market.
Speaking about Substack, I've been fascinated by how quickly that platform has grown and how disruptive it's starting to become. The one concept that I recently learned was the unbundling of news. The way it was explained is, I may not want to buy the entire copy of the Wall Street Journal, but I'm happy to pay for just that single article. I'd love to get your opinion about it, how Outlet may be trying to model that behavior.
Sure. You're right in that people have a desire to find the information that they are interested in and seek out people who are providing that. And Substack has certainly proven that people will pay for that. And you're paying, in some cases, $5 a month for just one creator. The danger, I think, with that, it doesn't address the issue of polarization and specialization that we're seeing in society when we have people who are only being exposed to certain viewpoints or certain portrayal of facts. And certainly that's your right as a person to go and seek out whatever information you want. But what Outlet would do differently in video is it would incentivize sampling of different creators. So one of the things that has evolved in my understanding of news and information is we were taught as journalists to seek out to be unbiased, to be totally unbiased, that it's possible to be unbiased. And as I've done more research and talked with people, I don't think that's the goal that we should be shooting for because we're all people. We're all coming from various perspectives, different lives. We're all going to be approaching facts with different lenses. So, what I'm hearing from people is how do I find the facts or how do I find information that isn't influenced or isn't coming from a particular perspective? And my view on that is that I think we get closer to a holistic version of the truth when we include multiple perspectives who are all agreeing to a basic standard of ethics. And that's how Outlet would be different is that I don't think you're going to be able to provide a platform that we tell the truth, that can claim every creator is telling the truth, every creator is unbiased, because despite their best intentions, I don't think that's possible. But I do think when we're exposed to a variety of creators, approaching the same concept or idea from various perspectives, that's a more holistic understanding of what the truth is. So with Substack, it's possible to only subscribe to one creator or two creators, two writers, and never see anything else. And so I think that limits your perspective and your understanding of events.
I'm hearing you say that as humans, we will always have a natural bias. But as long as you provide a platform that has some general baseline ethics that everyone agrees to, and then if we bring in a collective of humans that hence bring their own biases, the onus is then on the individual to extract the facts and absorb them.
Yes,
Okay. That does call for the consumer of the information to be more educated as opposed to just making everyone's opinions their own.
sure. And that, people are innately busy with their own lives, their own careers, and some people are lazy and they want to just have what's being told to them and just absorb it and run with it. And I just think we've moved past that as a society. I don't think we're able to turn on one channel or find one source and take it as total fact. I think that there are so many sources of information and so much overload going on that there is more of a responsibility on the consumer to get more sides, and so outlet wouldn't be totally unfiltered like if you're on YouTube where there's no differentiation between somebody posting about a vaccine who knows nothing versus a pulmonologist. There would be some basic standards, some guidelines, so that the creators that you're seeing are qualified and have experience in whatever topic area they're discussing. It would be encouraging consumers and users of the platform to sample other.
That makes sense. Now, looking back from your transition through the lens of employee versus an entrepreneur, is there any advice that you would give your pre transition self?
Yes. Be patient, first of all, and understand that progress is not as easily measurable as you might like. Yes, you can set goals, and it's really important to set your own goals, short term and long term goals, in whatever you're doing. But I found that coming from a reporter and TV anchor, my progress was visible and tangible every single day because I had a story that I worked on. I had multiple stories sometimes, and then I did live reports at the end of the day. I can look back and see this is what I did today, and I can even look back over the years and see how I've improved or see how my storytelling and writing has improved because it's all there very tangibly. So I think as an entrepreneur, especially in the beginning stages, understanding that learning is the first part of your product sometimes. And that is not always as easily, at least for me, it wasn't. It felt like, am I doing enough? Am I on the right track? Am I making enough progress? But I think understanding that learning is progress and is tangible.
Yeah, I agree, though it's very hard
Yeah.
to move from having very tangible, visible goals to just learning
Mhm.
and not really having anything to show for. What would you say your superpower is?
That's an interesting question, and it was one that was hard to answer for myself. So I actually asked a few of my friends this morning, and they said that empathy and empathetic listening in particular, and the ability to filter out BS quickly. That served me well as a journalist, obviously, is giving people the space to tell their story in a way that is free for them, like providing space for that without bringing in my preconceived notions of how the narrative should go. Because that's another thing. I think too often journalists will approach a story with already an understanding of how each interview is going to fit into the big picture, but really giving people the space to tell their story as they see it and then being willing to adapt your notions and your thoughts around it and making space for that story to change. And then quickly making decisions based on what you've just learned and what the facts are as you know them at the time.
What do you think the future of media or journalism is?
I think it's decentralization and independent creators, whether that's via writing, video, podcasting. We have a multitude of media at our disposal right now in the digital age. And people are experimenting with it. And journalists are increasingly leaving traditional corporations and legacy stations and news operations to start their own podcasts, to start their own newsletters. We saw with Substack, again, New York Times writers are leaving and going there. We've yet to see the power of the iPhone, too, invented in 2007 in the hands of 3.8 billion people worldwide. The potential is there for some incredible stories to continue to be told and engaged with. And I think there are various platforms and independent journalists who are working to build solutions around that.
I recently heard on a podcast, they described the New York Times app as really a cooking app with some news and media. And it shocked me because up until then, I actually didn't realize that that's exactly how I was using the app.
It doesn't surprise me to hear that. I was doing an interview yesterday with a young woman who started an independent company on the Arizona Mexico border, media company. And she was saying that one of the things that surprised her the most was her presuppositions of what people wanted to read and what they wanted to engage with. And she was surprised to see that there were all kinds of interests. Just like any person, we all have different interests in music and cooking and sports. And so when we think of people just wanting news or just wanting a certain subsect of news, we got to be really careful in those assumptions of what people actually want. People have many interests and many things are important to them.
Having gone through the global pandemic in the last 15 or so months, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the future of work, and in particular, what do career transitions look like for us?
Everyone's trying to figure out the new work situation. And I think it's different for every company. And it's hard to speak for someone who's been working from home with kids. I found that I don't really like working from home. I ended up after a few months joining a shared workspace in Cambridge just so I can have a dedicated space and be around other people who are building companies and doing things. For me personally, I wasn't a fan of it. A lot of people are asking for more flexibility in terms of when they work and from where they work. But I think companies that can offer that will probably be able to attract some employees who are really curious about other careers right now. The pandemic was a huge pause for everyone, I think, and an opportunity to reevaluate what you're doing.
What is the future of Outlet? What do you hope to accomplish with it?
The basic idea comes down to creating a community that works for creators and works for users, making it easy for independent video journalists and creators to monetize the work and own their value that they're creating, to allow them to continue to do more work that they want to do and are proud of, and then allowing users to engage with that in a direct way that's not influenced by politics or corporations. I'm not able to promise that everything on Outlet will be unbiased because I don't think that's possible. But what I can promise is that the content that you're seeing is not going to be influenced by those factors or advertisements. One of the issues Substack is facing is content moderation. We've seen Facebook really bungle that one. I think I have the benefit of being a newer company and seeing how these bigger companies are grappling with this problem to really get out in front of it in the beginning and set some clear standards on how we'll handle that.
I'm curious to know, as a platform provider, what is your individual opinion on content moderation?
I'm working actually with a woman who I'm building my advisory board right now, and she's with the Pointer Institute as well as with NPR. I think we have to be very clear from the beginning on what kind of content will be allowed and what will not. I don't think we should censor political views. We shouldn't censor opinions. But when it comes to speech or videos that incite large amounts of people to commit violence, that's that should be taken down. There are things that are objectively bad for society that I think we can all agree on shouldn't be on the platform. Part of what we'll build in is a system that users and creators can flag inappropriate content that's inaccurate for review and institute kind of a three strikes you're out method, like notify the creator this content either violated ABCD standard that we clearly set when you signed on to be a creator. And they have the opportunity to, I think, upon first chance, they can take it down, put something up. But if they keep violating it, then they'll be removed as a creator.
Yeah. The future of content moderation is fascinating and terrifying all at the same time. Caitlin, it was so much fun chatting with you. Is there any question that I should have asked and I didn't?
Not that I can think of at the moment. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I'm excited about connecting with you and your group of listeners as well.